Genesis 47:6. Pharaoh instructs Joseph, "The land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best of the land. Let them settle in the land of Goshen." As the story is told, we see that Joseph's father and brothers and all of their families came to Egypt to settle, with a total of 70 in Jacob's household to settle in Goshen. There is documentation of the Israelites' arrival found inside a tomb at Beni Hassan Cemetery, 20 miles south of Minya. Inside is a perfectly preserved wall painting, which records an ancient migration into Egypt from the area of modern Israel. As in the Bible, the scene involves bearded Semites riding donkeys, bringing their families and flocks of animals. Like the biblical Israelites, they are wearing multicolored tunics. The hieroglyphic inscription inside calls these people the Amo, or God's people. Here, we see a veritable extra-biblical description of the Israelites in a major event detailed in the Holy Scriptures. So, for the next major event to present, we will be able to see precisely where the Israelites settle and eventually grow in size. The name derives from the Egyptian name Gesem, situated in the eastern delta of the Nile in Lower Egypt. The land around Tel El Daba was identified and rediscovered in 1885, and the ruins of Pi Ramesses, or the land of Ramesses, was found. The Austrian Archaeological Institute have been excavating the area around Tel El Daba since the 1960s, and that was known as Avaris from the 2nd century BCE. As a secular institute, here are their findings concerning the site. In 1930 BC, it was a small Egyptian town until taken over and began to grow by an arrival of an Asiatic people in the exact period we expect it to be. The settlement is no longer visible, as the farmers have reclaimed the land. However, the mound of Tel El Daba can still be seen today. The Austrian archaeologists have successfully been able to reveal so much evidence over the years, all of which can testify to Israelite presence. Numerous drill cores in the entire area have revealed that a branch of the Nile flowed through here during the Middle Kingdom period, which further supports the settlement was a thriving one. Canaanite design is prevalent here, and according to the scriptures, Jacob, the eldest patriarch of the family, moves into the area with them. He is the most respected and revered member of the Israelites, and we expect he would have had the best home among the family. During excavations, a Syrian-style house was found, called the Metal-Saul house today, precisely the style house we see in the land of Hebron in North Syria, where the patriarchs came from. This would have been the home of Jacob. Later on, after the time Jacob passes away, the home was flattened and an Egyptian-style palace was constructed. However, the occupant was not Egyptian, not fitting for a pharaoh, but fitting for a vizier. The palace had courtyards, colonnades, an audience chamber, and even a robing room. This is someone extremely important to the state, tied directly to this community of Semites. Inside was the largest mud brick bed frame ever found in ancient Egypt. If it were for Joseph, we would expect such a bed size. At the other end of the home was found 2 identical apartment-style suites, which could very well have been for the only 2 sons he had, Manasseh and Ephraim. The most significant find from this palace was found outside the inner courtyard. Supporting the facade was 12 columns, which would represent the 12 tribes now living together near the palace. Here's where it really gets fascinating. Outside the palace was a garden found a series of tombs, all enclosed in the garden. The number of principal tombs were precisely 12. 11 of these were Canaanite-style tombs, which originally had arched coverings. As expected, The bodies are not present since it was said that they were brought back on their journey to the Promised Land. To further demonstrate these were Semitic tombs, another location in the city were similar arched graves where the bodies were still present. What is interesting is that the bodies were found laying on their sides in a semi-fetal position, not typical of Egyptian citizens, but rather being very typical of Semitic burial norms of the time. Inside were found Canaanite pottery and smaller vessels normally designed to carry perfumes and ointments. Bronze belts were also found, which chieftains would wear, designed to carry daggers. Many of the daggers were also found inside the palace garden tombs as well. Beautifully designed daggers with ribbing and ivory handles with gold rivets that hold the framework together. Very high status materials. Genesis 49:5 confirms. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Their daggers are vicious weapons. To further demonstrate these were Canaanite tombs, tradition reveals that donkeys brought the dead to their final resting place on a cart. Once this was complete, the donkeys were slaughtered and buried in front of the tombs along with a sacrificial sheep. Skeletal remains of donkeys were found in front of these tombs in Avaris. The remains of sheep were revealed to be of the long-haired North Syrian sheep variety. This has never been seen in Egypt before, nor has it ever been found again. We stated that there were 11 of these primary tombs in total, but now it is time to take a look at tomb number 12. It was clearly different from all the rest. The front of the tomb had a chapel. The tomb itself was covered by none other than a small pyramid. The pyramid is too small in size for a pharaoh, yet monolithic pyramids were reserved only for the kings. So it cannot be a king, yet the person that this tomb belonged to was honored so highly that he was allowed to have a smaller one here. It makes perfect sense that Joseph would have had a small-sized pyramid over his tomb, which still fits in with the rest of the Canaanite graves. Inside this chapel, it appears that it was ransacked in more recent times. The base of a statue was found inside, and many of the pieces of the statue was nearby. What the archaeologists have been able to piece together provides us an incredible amount of information. This statue was an extremely high-ranking Egyptian official with Semitic features. The face was intentionally targeted and destroyed, but the mushroom-style hair was extremely clear, and some of the paint on the perfectly combed hair still shows a red color. Over the shoulder appears to be a throw stick, a symbol of an Asiatic or Semite. The biggest and most significant evidence of this statue tells us that this had to be Joseph, is that the remains of the colors of his coat still remain, a multicolored coat just like the one Jacob had given Joseph before he was sold to Egypt. This statue, again, was in such an immense size that only kings would have been granted. Egyptian historians concur that this statue would have been carved in the royal workshop next to the pyramid of Amenhotep III. Therefore, this pharaoh would have been the person to order the statue to be made. This all agrees with the Genesis account, stating that Pharaoh was so pleased with Joseph that he honored him in the highest degree. Archaeologists are under the constant watch of the Egyptian Antiquities Authority, who makes Avaris off-limits to the public. Supposedly for conservation reasons, archaeologists are required to cover the entire complex over each time. Very few realize that these fields hidden in the Nile Delta are an archaeological treasure trove that proves the Israelite long-term settlement in Egypt. Over the years, Manfred Biatak, head of the Austrian Archaeological Institute, was able to determine that Avaris stretched out for over 250 hectares, big enough to be a city to a very large number of Israelites living here. Join me next time in part 3 of the settlement in Egypt, where we uncover the evidence of Israelite slavery and later God's judgment on Egypt. here on Evidence Uncovered.